morning. This is the Blaine's World podcast or webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you can listen and find out more about at our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Pam Granger Gale, owner of Majik Studios 207 or 207, is that how you say it?
207.
207, for being my guest today. Thanks for joining me, Pam. You can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Blaine, for having me and having such patience.
Okay, well, likewise, and that's Pam. Pam Granger Gale is a retired elementary school teacher with 25 years of experience. I found it hard to believe when I saw that. So you started what, at the age of 7 years old? You were like the youngest elementary teacher ever?
Oh, thank you so much, Blaine. I appreciate that.
Well, 8 years old maybe, but yeah, I'm a retired teacher also. And she learned paper and fabric marbling at a workshop at Hilton Head Island. When she and her family moved to Asheville, she took more classes to perfect her technique. She enjoys teaching classes in our studio located in River Arts District at Pink Dog Creative on Depot Street. And so the question, Pam, I always ask when I meet somebody for the first time is, as a child, you grew up where?
I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, which is just about an hour down the mountain.
And when you, yeah, I'm sorry.
Until I met my husband, and we will soon be married 40 years next month. So I stayed in Greenville until then, but then we lived at Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, and then, like you say, we moved up here to Asheville in 1996.
And so when you were a child growing up in Greenville, did you always know you wanted to be an artist?
Yes, I took lots of art classes. I did little projects back on my desk that my daddy made back in my bedroom, which I shared with my sister. And I vividly remember taking an orange juice can, and I had some old fabric because back then I sewed my clothes along with Diane and Mama. And there was a scrap of fabric that I took, measured it out around that orange juice can, and then very carefully hand stitched it so it fit around that orange juice can and gave it to my daddy.
And how old were you?
Oh gosh, I don't know. It must have been between 9 and 10.
Now, it's too bad I'm looking in your studio there. We don't have a picture of that first thing you ever did, or did you get it back from your dad?
Oh, no, as an artist, we make things and we like to A, give them away, or B, sell them. And then the last thing for me is I like to teach so that I can share my knowledge with others.
But just think about that. That'd be something we could recreate. That'd be fun. Or show your students how to do this. I'll show you my first piece of art. So that's cool. So you then got into elementary school teaching. Were you an art teacher, or what did you teach in elementary school?
I taught elementary art for 25 years. I taught it in South Carolina. And then on Hilton Head, I took a little break and taught all ages. I ran an art center for 7 years, and that's where I began doing marbling classes. And then when we decided to move up to Asheville, I knew I had to have a job that made money. So I recertified myself and got a job teaching art at Brevard Elementary in Brevard, North Carolina.
And how long did you do that?
From 17 years.
Okay, so quite a while. So what's nice to hear is that when I used to teach, I taught high school for a while, and I taught college, but all the public schools back in New Jersey and Pennsylvania were getting away with art programs. So I'm so excited that you were teaching in Brevard, and they still had a viable art program?
Yes, sir, they sure did. The school district really backed the art in those years, and I think they still do because they know the importance of it, because all children learn differently. Some learn by listening, some by looking, some by reading, and then some by touch and feel. So we all learn differently, and all those modalities need to be addressed and given the chance for the children to experience.
I'm getting such a chill, but a good chill having you tell me that. Because again, what a shame that other districts are cutting away art programs. So kudos to Brevard and anybody else still having art teachers. And like you said, everybody learns differently. So you're in Brevard 17 years. And so when did you leave Brevard, the teaching aspect?
Okay. You know, when I say I taught in Brevard,
Right.
that's literally what I did. I lived in Asheville the whole
Right.
time I taught in Brevard. So I drove back and forth 5 days a week to go teach. And I left teaching in 2016 because I'd reached a magic number, age number. And I said, oh, that's a good age. And I'm still young enough that I can get out and create a studio. And that's what I had in my mind. So my first studio I created was on Cox Avenue at 207 Cox Avenue. And I had a group of artists that came in and helped pay the rent, and they were allowed to teach art classes there of their own choice. And well, that worked out really good until 2020 came along, and then everybody knows what happened that year. Everything shut down with the COVID pandemic. And then I couldn't get any classes going. And so I closed that studio in December of 2020. So then I took a break and I needed to find a new space. And you know, it was always my goal to be in the River Arts District because it's so vibrant and has so many artists here, and it's such a, you know, connected community. So I was delighted when I hooked up with Andrea Coolish, and she told me about a studio space in Pink Dog, and I interviewed for it. And Eddie Fisher, you know, did the interviewing because she's the building owner, and chose me over 2 other painters because I did something that was different than what the painters did. And she thought that might be interesting for the visitors who come to Asheville.
Now, I'm very excited you mentioned, so you're in the River Arts District and Depot Street, but you were okay with the hurricane, or did it impact you?
Okay, yes, everybody's concerned. And I always say that I'm one of the lucky 20%ers
Wow.
that didn't get washed away. And it's because we were on the other side of the railroad track and further away from the river. And we're also up some steps. We're on an incline. So that helped save our studio, even though we do get rainwater through the back of our building because we are right up against a mountain. But that helps keep our temperature at a moderated level during the seasons.
Now, is that where we're speaking now? You're in the studio now?
Yes, sir, I sure am.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit then about the studio. So you have this beautiful space here, and you're into something which you're going to teach me a little bit about. But as you were saying, you're not like all the other artists who paint and do all the other cool stuff, but they like you because you do something called marbling. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And if you could, if you keep it to under 2 hours, could you describe what marbling is?
Okay. My brief description is that marbling is a 1,000-year-old technique of floating paint on a thickened water surface. It started out as suminagashi, which is floating ink on water, and ink is basically water that's black. So that was pretty amazing. And this was before it's like in the 5th and 6th centuries. I'm not sure about my dates on that. But the artisan nomads lived and visited Japan and found out what they were doing there. So then they took that knowledge and walked across the Asian continent and ended up in Iran, Iraq, and Turkey. And the Turks knew that plants had a gelatinous material inside them called cellulose. They had learned how to extract it, and they collected it in a small pan. And then back in the 17th century, there was no Dick Blick or Cheap Joe's where they could get paint. They had to grind their paint from pigments and earth and dirt so that they would have some colors to float on top of it. And then that, you know, it migrated down to Italy, it migrated up to London and England and over to France and up further to Belgium and, you know, some of the more northern European countries. And it became very popular because of bookbinding. All books were made by hand in those days, from the leather that bound the outside cover to the handmade paper, and then the hand-bound papers were collected and made into a book, and it was bound with leather. Now, where did marbling come in? Years passed, and they just kept binding the books with leather, but somebody noticed that the leather stained those two inner pages called facing pages. So in order to disguise that, the marblers who had been coming across Asian continents said, hey, we can marble those papers and put beautiful designs on them. And so they did. So that's how marbling came integrated with bookbinding. And I challenge everybody that's looking at this video to see if you have an old family Bible, because those are the classic forms that will hold and have beautiful marble patterns in them. Just like my husband's 2-volume Bible set has a gorgeous nonpareil pattern in that.
By the way, you come up with a great idea. I want to put your husband to work if he's listening. But as you're speaking, Bob, could you get that Bible? Is it handy? I'd love to see it. Or no, you're at home. It's at home, right? We're not here. It's not in the studio, right?
It's not here. But many old library books, Pam will tell you, they can probably find in libraries and find those marbled insides.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's really cool. So is this, you see in like sort of old Bibles, you see in libraries, can you still see, do people still put them in books?
Yeah, there's a modern trend to do hand book binding, and many marblers will use their own papers to do the covers and then to do the facing pages as well. And they are beautiful, bright colored art pieces. And so to find some of those more classic books that Bob was talking about being in libraries, I would go more to a museum or a conservator place that would have those books in there.
Now, is this something you're going to talk about? You teach folks this when you were teaching in the public schools. Is this something you taught your students too, or no?
Oh, absolutely. When I fell with it, I had to share it with my students. But as a smart art teacher, I waited until the end of the year when I could use the marbling, because it's so exciting as an end of the year activity when the kids needed just something low, very high success rate. That's what I'm going to say. It's a very high success rate because they can put the paint on in any color and way and draw through it in any manner. And once you print it on the paper, it's successful.
And so what do people, and you're going to show us in a little bit, but what do people, when you have a student or they come to a course with you at the studio there, so what are they drawing? They're doing pictures, they're doing book covers, what are they doing?
No, and I don't know if Bob can direct the camera to my left. I have patterns.
Right, I see it.
Okay, he's going to move the camera a little bit. So
there you go. Perfect, Bob. Thanks.
And so these are just a sample of the patterns that can be learned in a class. And every artist, every person has their favorite thing to do. And once they've learned the basic techniques, they will just go off on their own. See, like these, I'm going to show you how to make patterns like this with drawn strokes. And this, I'll show you how the dots are formed on the marbling. And these are all prints on paper. So they are just a little tiny sample of what can be done with marbling.
And so when you make the print on the paper or you put it on paper, if you put it on the paper, what do you do with these prints? You just hang them or frame them, or they're decorative?
You can hang them, you can frame them. Reach back here and pull this up.
All right.
Okay.
And is this a print you made and people, you sell these as a print?
Yeah, this is a note card. So it has a little frame around it. And this is also special because we printed it on music paper. And so then it has an envelope that you can write a note to someone special inside and
Very
seal
nice.
it, send it to them.
Now, is this something this piece we're looking at, is this something you did?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay, very cool. So I want to put you on the spot here if I can, Pam, but I'm very excited the fact that we can talk about it. You said you can actually show us what this entails?
Oh, yes, I sure can. Are
Yeah.
you ready to see it?
I'm ready if you are, and if Bob is, let's go.
Let's wait.
Okay.
Okay,
So, yeah, so anyway, this is just a board and this is covering the size. Now, when I stand up, is my head in this?
It will be.
Or
it's perfect.
I can slide over here and do this way. Now, before we signed on, Blaine, I tested my paint. So this is why it looks like there's paint in there.
Right?
Really is this because there is. What I'm doing right now is skimming the surface to get the paint that floats on the top off. And everybody has to learn how to do that to become a marbler. And you become more efficient with this every single time that you do it. So this one, this pool, didn't have any color on it at all. So my paints are an acrylic that's been watered down. And I just chose 5 colors to work with here. So I've got a red. And I'm floating this on a surface.
Very cool.
Yes, and you see the paints are expanding and getting bigger. And so then you put other colors on and they expand and they push and make their own way on the tray. I'm going to just do a straight up primary color print right now.
Now, there's no limit, right, as to how many colors you could put on there?
Yes and no. It depends on how much of one color you put on.
Gotcha.
And what they start doing, because this, we call this their playground.
I see it, yeah.
And some colors are bossy and like to take over the playground. So this is, you know, the most fun right here is where you start drawing through the colors and bringing a design into them. And the more you draw and the closer you draw together, the more intricate the pattern is.
Now, what I'm seeing here, which would be fun, if you're not an artist or you're a beginner or a novice or taking somebody a course with you for the first time, you can still enjoy this or have fun with it without having to be a proficient artist, I would imagine.
Sorry.
Exactly. It's fine. And so now I'm going to take the white paper and I hold it diagonally and I'm going to lay it on the surface. And this is called making a print.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, okay. So this is a wee bit tricky because I want to show the camera and the audience what I pull off of the tray. So, and I always call this the magical marbling reveal. 1, 2, and 3.
Wow.
And there is the paint that was there is on this piece of paper. And believe it or not, I'm going to run the squeegee over this paper and it's not going to hurt it. It's scooping off the slime. And hold on, just a minute. I just like to clean the slime off of this and scrape it one more time to make this even cleaner. And there we go. This first print got a little messy, and I don't know, maybe I'm just slightly nervous about being on the webcam.
Now, how long does the whole process then, doesn't seem to take very long, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I often have people say, oh, how long does it take you to do it?
Right.
And I smile at them and say 33 years and an hour, especially when I'm doing a big scarf, because that takes me longer to complete the scarf from top to bottom. And at the end, I will show you one of my scarves.
Yeah, I want to see it. Now, what you just showed us, how long does that take to dry?
It'll take about 2 hours to dry.
Okay. So what's exciting about it, if somebody takes a course with you, then, so you show them how to do this technique, and now is the course a one-time deal or a couple of weeks?
No, it's 2 hours. I give them 2 hours. We make lots of paper. I let them try different things that were on my chart over here. And then I have a bigger tray that's a square tray that a scarf will fit in. And so I give them an opportunity to choose what pattern and colors they want to be on their scarf, because it's going to be something that they can wear forever and ever. So when I do it on silk, it's really magical and fun. The silk just soaks up the paint so much faster. So I'm going to do another quick print here. And you
By the way, as you're talking, I don't mean to interrupt you here, but you're wearing, is that a scarf you're wearing?
Yes, sir, it sure is.
And you did that?
Yes, sir, I did.
How cool is that? Very, though. And I bet too, when people see it, do they compliment you on it?
Yes, they do. And then I also, for the men, I have neckties and bow ties. So right now I'm wanting to show you that you can use combs and rakes, the different, width between the points make different designs. And then just for fun and for beginners, I use this old hair pick.
Okay.
And there's a few of us remember these from when they were used for
my grandparents told me about that, I think.
Okay, very good. So anyway, so I'm drawing straight down. I'm going straight back up. And then I'm going over one side, and then I'm going to go back over the next side. And this is really an awesome print right here. So again, I lay the paper down. And okay, I will pull it off. Get a board. I need a board. Trusty boards. Some of these boards are old political sign boards.
Good usage of them, right?
Yes, it is. I consider I'm doing a good service for the community. Okay, and now magical marbling reveal number 2.
Wow.
1, 2, 3.
Very cool. Now, when people, so it'll take 2 hours to dry. Do they then, when they go home or something, do they frame these, or what do they do with them?
Oh, they do a lot of things. They frame it. I had a couple that were into origami, and they folded the papers, the marble papers, into origami, which was really, really cool. Oh, and this print really turned out nicely. Let me take a minute and then get this right here.
Love it. Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
Now, the only thing I don't see your initials there. Do you initial like an artist? Do you put your initials on them after you've done them?
Oh yes, I sure do. I sign every one of them.
So when people do these, let's talk about what happens then. So they can frame it, they can give it, I guess, as gifts.
Yes.
I love the scarf. Aside from the scarf, can you use them for any other thing, any other clothing?
Oh, let me see. Well, I have been sitting on a stool that has a cover.
Very nice. That's beautiful.
I have marbled tennis shoes. I have, oh, let me get this down. Now I work with a friend, a seamstress friend. Her name is Marcia Mills. So she had the idea for us to marble fabric, and she took it home and stitched it on upcycled jackets. So that's the back panel.
Oh, I love it.
The collar is marbled, and the cuffs are marbled as well. So these are a popular item here in my studio too.
So people can come and learn from you, and then they can actually make clothes if they want.
No, we don't. No, I don't teach a class
So
in
no,
making.
no, but I'm saying they can bring in something and put it on a jacket.
If they want to do that, yes, they can.
And if you would, I mean, this is really cool. If you would, talk a little bit about the course. So if somebody's watching this, and we'll give contact information at the end, they could learn from you the technique. I guess they can take a course with you, or is it a one-on-one thing? How do you work it?
Yes, I have a beginning marbling class. It goes for 2 hours. It's generally either on a Friday or Saturday. Excuse me. From 1 to 3 in the afternoon. And these are adult classes. So they spend 2 hours with me. The first hour is practicing on paper like I've done and learning the patterns, learning how to put the paint on the surface. There's an art form all in and of itself. Learning how to use the many tools like this, because different tools at different times do different things.
I imagine you could probably use an old hairbrush also on this, could you?
Those are a little close. I do like my
Yours?
hairpin like this. Yeah, I like those because those really create some interesting designs the more you draw with.
Now, they take the beginning course. You mentioned there are other courses beyond the beginning course?
Yes, I have an all paper course. It's an intermediate course that people can sign up for and take, and that way they learn more complicated patterns. This Thursday and Friday, I have a sold out class with local cloth members, and they are learning the patterns on one day, and then the next day they're going to be marbling cotton fabric, because local cloth artists use a lot of cotton. They quilt, they use they make quilt squares, they make pot holders. So I'm giving them the chance to marble their fabric and have it be cotton, so that then they can create something else with it.
And you mentioned there are 2 things I guess people can do. They can you can have one-on-one instruction with you, but you mentioned classes. How big are the classes?
But maximum is 4 people in a class. Then there's an upper level class that costs more, that only has 2, and they get to make and create a bigger, longer scarf. But all the scarves that are created in the beginning marbling class are 26 by 26. Or as in the case of the local cloth cotton class, it's going to be 26-inch square cotton.
And Pam, if folks want to learn more about 2 things, I guess. Number 1, about your artwork. Then number 2, about the courses. Is this on our website, or what's the best way to find more information?
Okay. My website is www.majik, spelled MAJIK -studios, and that's plural.com. I have everything listed there from my classes to where I have my work on display. I'm a member of the Southern Highland Craft Guild, and my work is at the Folk Arts Center. It will be at Moses Cone in April, and the Tunnel Road store. And let's see, I'm a member of the RAD here in the River Arts District, and I have pieces in the RADA Outpost, which is the new facility display space that has graciously been loaned to us for a year, so that the displaced artists can have their works on sale. And then those of us who have studios, we're allowed to have a piece or 2 there as well. So I have my work for sale there. And then I'm of course, I have my work for sale here in my studio, and I'm generally open from Tuesdays to Saturdays from 1 to 4.
But the best thing is to check the website and contact you, I guess, first before somebody comes over.
Sure. And I also have a sale page on my website, so people can look there and find a scarf for sale, and then they can purchase it directly and I'll ship it out. If you are local, you can say you want local pickup and you would pick it up here in my studio space.
And the one thing I'm getting from talking to you, which is kind of cool, is that it also seems like a fun thing to do. I mean, see, with you, but if people are taking a course, they're going to actually have fun and actually be able to produce something as a result of that course.
Exactly. And that's what I like. I want to make it fun because when you watch marbling, it is mesmerizing because the paints expand and they kind of have a little life of their own going on, and they interact, and you have to figure out the personalities of the colors that you're working with on that day. And I always say, these are my children, because some are bossy and some are shy and some play just fine. So if you're a parent, you know that. And as a teacher like yourself, Blaine, you know that students of all ages can have different personalities.
What I like about this too, Pam, one final thing, is that even for a guy like me, I'm colorblind, but if you're colorblind, you could still succeed in this.
Yes, exactly. You can. And I do have black and brown paints that I don't bring out really on the first day of a beginning level class because it takes a little bit more expertise in knowing how much to put on the tray. But yes, those colors are very vibrant too, and they're very nice to work with a limited color palette.
Anyway, I'd like to thank you for being my guest on this edition of the Blaine's World webcast. I'd also like to thank your husband, Bob. Thanks, Bob, in the background for helping us out with the photography. And also, I'd like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti. And hopefully someday in the future, we'll even get to bump into each other. This will be great, Pam.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me on.
Okay, I appreciate it.